The decision from Maine Secretary of State to remove Donald Trump from the Republican primary ballot is drawing harsh criticism and calls for an appeal. In statements to the Portland Press-Herald, the GOP leader in the Maine House called it a sham decision and warned it will not stand legal scrutiny. The state's Republican Senate leader says the decision undermines democracy and Maine voters deserve a primary process that allows for each party to decide its own candidates. The Maine GOP has said it will appeal that decision. Here's what the party chairman told CNN last night.
She has kicked a serious hornet's nest. I've heard just in the last couple of hours from so many independents, Democrats and Republicans alike, this isn't about Donald Trump. This is about our constitutional rights and the ability of the American people to elect into leadership the people that they choose.
And Maine Secretary of State Shenna Bellows joins us now. Good to have you with us this morning. I'm sure you had already seen and heard much of that criticism and more. How do you respond this morning?
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I think it's really important that people understand the process. As a general matter, states have the power to control their own ballots and in fact do under the Constitution. And Maine law specifically delegates to me as Secretary of State a requirement to review the qualifications for any candidate running for office. So for example, last week, the Superior Court found that my decision to bar Mr. Chris Christie from Maine's presidential primary ballot due to lack of signatures was lawful and correct. So my job, I qualify Mr. Trump for the ballot, and under Maine law, any registered voter can bring a challenge to that qualification. In this case, there were 3 challenges, and I was required by law to hold a hearing, an administrative hearing, to review the evidence, hear testimony. Both sides were represented by counsel. Mr. Trump was represented by an attorney, and then I'm required to issue a decision. That's my obligation under the oath I swore to the Constitution.
All right, guys, so we got to follow up on the bombshell news that dropped last night regarding the Trump deranged Secretary of State for Michigan barring Trump from the ballot. Okay, now this is a bombshell decision because this is the second state that has barred Trump from the ballot. Okay, that includes Colorado. Now, in the case of Colorado, Trump has actually been reinstated, at least as of right now, after a Republican challenge, but that still will be determined by the Supreme Court in regards to whether or not Trump can stay on the ballot. And it seems like in this case of Maine, it's also going to be up to the courts to decide whether or not Trump can stay on the ballot. Now, this Secretary of State is essentially creating a new precedent, a precedent that I told you guys that Democrats would try to create when Jack Smith first bought his January 6th case against Trump, that they were going to try to empower some of these Trump deranged, liberal, progressive Secretary of States to remove Trump from the ballot. And that's exactly what happened. Okay, we are witnessing history right now, guys. We are living in a historic moment in this country where Democrats are trying to overthrow our republic so that they can protect their democracy, aka dictatorship, right? Because that's what it means. Anytime they talk about democracy, just replace the word democracy with dictatorship, and all of a sudden the actions make sense, right? That's kind of how it works. But I personally think and believe that this is not going to work, okay? And I want to play this clip here from CNN's lawyer, Mr. Elie Honig, which again is a hell of a last name, Honig. But anyways, Mr. Honig here is going to essentially destroy this Maine Secretary of State's decision to bar Trump from the ballot, because basically she really doesn't have the authority to be making these decisions, and the way that she made these decisions was not legally sound in regards to how these types of decisions are made. And he's going to break that down. I think he does a good job of explaining why this really is, nonsensical, right, to do. But before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Noble Gold. Chances are you've been here before. The chaos in the markets, oil, stocks. Just when you thought it was safe and interest rates were rising, new threats are coming out of nowhere. Tensions are boiling from Asia to Europe, and adaptation is the key to securing your wealth. You may not have considered gold before. It's not speculation, but insurance. And right now, you need some insurance. Noble Gold Investments has been protecting investors from disaster for years with precious metals. So if you're worried, it might be time to take a fresh look at gold and silver. Gold is a proven shield for your portfolio and a volatility balance against uncertainty. If it helps, Noble Gold Investments is offering a free 5-ounce America the Beautiful coin with its new IRAs this month. If you open your Noble Gold Investments IRA or roll over your 401k, you can claim your coin today. Remember, crisis brews, portfolios waver, and gold insulates. Secure yourself against threats today. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com. That is noblegoldinvestments.com, the only gold company I trust. And just remember, there's a risk with every investment, and there's no guarantee of any kind.
Paul Lance is back with us, along with CNN senior legal analyst Elie Honig, also CNN political commentator and former Utah Republican member of Congress, Mia Love. Elie, Counselor, I just want to start with you. Again, it was an interesting discussion, an interesting take from the Maine Secretary of State here. The 14th Amendment, Section 3, says in plain text that if you shall have engaged in insurrection, you can't be in office. She takes that to mean that if she determines that Donald Trump engaged in insurrection, he can't be on the Maine primary ballot. Is it that simple?
No, it's not that simple. So clearly, Section 3 of the 14th Amendment says, engage in insurrection, you're out. We all have that. The complicated part, and where we are going to see this play out in the courts, is who gets to decide and by what process. Now, it's important to note, and in the ruling, the Secretary of State we just heard from says she's basically following the same legal reasoning as the Colorado Supreme Court did last week. And she says in her ruling, if this gets struck down in Colorado, we're out of luck, too. So she's basing it on the same legal argument. Let me sort of lay out the arguments both sides. And by the way, it's worth saying, we're all theorizing here. We're in legally unknown territory.
Again, that's the scary part about this, right? Is the fact that, and I've stated this before and I'll continue to state it, this tells you everything you need to know about how much Democrats actually fear Republicans, because they have no issues setting these new precedents, wading into these legal waters that we've never been to before in order to try to bar their political opponent from being on the ballot, right? To basically rig the outcome of the election right in front of your face, right? These are the same people that swear up and down, oh no, we don't rig elections, we believe in democracy, but they literally rig elections right in front of you, like right in front of your face. I mean, look at what they're doing to Joe Biden in the primary in North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee. They are keeping all of his opponents off of the ballot, right? They're not letting them on the ballot. So you don't have a choice in the Democrat primary in regards to who you want to be president. It just has to be Joe Biden. You don't get a chance to vote for anybody else, right? And that's what's happening. They're quite literally overthrowing democracy, right? AKA protecting their dictatorship right in front of your face. And the fact that they're doing it, especially when it comes to doing it against Republicans, tells you how much they fear Republicans. They don't fear Republicans. They don't fear that Republicans are going to retaliate in a way that is going to make them regret setting these new precedents, right? This is why I was so frustrated with Republicans for refusing to do anything about Jamal Bowman. Okay, all they did was denounce him in Congress. I'm like, well, that does nothing. They should have had a vote to kick his ass out, right? Why do I say that? It's because what he did, if a Republican would have done what he did, which was pull a fire alarm with the intent to obstruct an official proceeding in Congress. He lied about it. It's on video. You have all the evidence there to bring up a vote to kick him out based off prior precedents that Democrats set, and then Republicans decided not to do it, but yet they kicked their own guy out, George Santos. It just shows you how weak they are, right? Look, Bob Menendez is still in the Senate. They haven't done anything about it. And this is why Democrats don't fear making moves like this, because they know Republicans ain't going to do a damn thing, because a lot of these Republicans own the same damn team. They're on the same team. And that's what pisses me off. Democrats have been emboldened to do this because there is no consequences. None. Zero. Republicans just stand by and they just take it right up the butt. No lube, no condom, nothing. Just raw from Democrats. Just take it. That's all they do. That's all they're good for. Democrats should be terrified to make decisions like this in this country, right? When you have a strong opposition party, they should be terrified. This should be something, we're not going to do that. Because they going to come back at us 10 times harder if we do that to them. So we're not going to do this. But the fact that they're doing it tells you everything you need to know about Republicans. It says a lot more about Republicans than it says about Democrats. Okay, and I think that's what a lot of people are missing from this.
The argument against is, first of all, The 14th Amendment, Section 5, says Congress has the authority to pass laws to implement this. They did. They passed the criminal law. And the argument is that means Congress, not the states. But perhaps, and this is the argument that the Maine Secretary of State in Colorado made, the states can do it too. If that's true, then Section 2, Question 2 is, were the processes, were these hearings fair? Did they comport with due process? And I think there's a question there with regard to what Maine did, because if you look at the hearing, and she details this in the ruling, they heard from one fact witness, a law professor. She based her ruling on a lot of documents, but also YouTube clips, news reports, things that would never pass the bar in normal court. She's not a
Yeah, so basically she based her decision based off of her Trump derangement, right? That's what she actually really did, okay? She's not a lawyer, okay? This is not some like actual, kind of legal decision or what. No, this is just her Trump derangement, right? This is her saying, look, I want to potentially, run for governor one day, right? I think Maine, for the most part, I think is kind of a more Democrat-leaning state, okay? I think it can kind of go back and forth. But maybe she's trying to run for higher office. Maybe she's trying to become some superstar in the Democrat Party. And we've seen this, right? We've seen, what's going on down in Georgia with Fannie Pack Willis. An easy way to gain stardom in the Democrat Party is to essentially go after Trump, right? To persecute Trump politically, to bring fake indictments against him, to try to kick him off the ballot. That's an easy way to gain stardom and popularity in the Democrat Party. And that's what she's doing. She's taking advantage of that. So now she's setting a precedent that a bunch of other Democrat, Secretary of States will be empowered to try to do the same thing, to unilaterally pull him from the ballot and then say, hey, well, let the courts decide. And they're going to hope that, the courts will side with them at least once to have him removed, right? That's what they're hoping for here. But isn't it amazing how all this is occurring at one time, guys? Right? Which tells you that it's coordinated, 100% coordinated. It happens just as Trump is running away in the polls, in which, after you see this happen, his poll numbers are going to continue to go up, right? Oh, best believe his poll numbers are going to skyrocket, okay? It just so happens that this is happening as it looks like Joe Biden is going to lose in a landslide to Trump. Now they're pulling out all of this at one time against the guy. They had all these years to try to do this to Trump, but they waited until it became clear that if the election was held today, Trump was going to win, and that, Joe Biden's on his last legs, right? Politically and physically and mentally, right? Let's keep it 100. So again, this is desperation. That's exactly what this is.
Lawyer, by the way. It's a smartly written decision, clearly consulted with lawyers, but this is an unelected. She's chosen by the state legislature.
She's elected by the state legislature.
Chosen, elected by the legislature, but not democratically elected. Not a knock. That's just the way it's set up in Maine. And this hearing, look, it doesn't have to be a criminal trial. We don't have to have all the protections. But I think the argument you'll hear from opponents is, one, not up to the states to do this. This is why we have all different decisions from all different states. And
yes, it's not up to the states to do it. Okay, it's up to Congress, and Congress already had a chance to do it, and they failed, right? They failed. Okay, that's what the impeachment trial was, right? That's what it was. And again, Congress decided that, hey, Trump's not disqualified and he wasn't guilty. And that should have been the end of it.
Two, the procedures were not up to snuff.
Elie, we keep on talking about the U.S. Supreme Court weighing in. One of the big questions is weighing in on what, though? Do you expect the Supreme Court to say Donald Trump engaged in or did not engage in insurrection?
No. I do think the Supreme Court is going to take this case. I think tonight's ruling makes it even more likely because now, as Caitlin just showed, we have a split. The majority of states, secretaries of state and state courts have rejected this, but now we have two that have done this. I think the Supreme Court's going to take the case. They're not going to get into whether he engaged in insurrection. They're going to take on two questions. One, is this solely for Congress, or can the states do this, as we saw in Colorado and Maine? If the states can do it, did they have fair due process? Were the hearings, the quasi-trials, were they enough due process? And was it known in advance? Part of due process is you have to know what the process is in advance, or are they just sort of making it up after the fact and applying it retroactively? So I do think this all but ensures the Supreme Court will take it, and I think the ruling is going to be based on due process.
All right. Yeah. So you seen that, you heard that. Okay, you seen that, you heard that. Now, here's, again, what I think, right? I personally believe Trump has not been charged with the act of insurrection. Nobody involved with January 6th has been charged with an act of insurrection. Nobody's been found guilty of an act of insurrection. In the impeachment trials, Trump was found not guilty. Okay, Congress already decided that he's not going to be barred. So again, this has already been settled. So again, what Democrats are trying to do here is a desperate Hail Mary that even CNN's legal analyst, who I got to admit, he's not as partisan as a lot of these people on these liberal networks. Even he's saying that, yeah, this is not, this really don't make that much sense, right? This right here would never pass the bar in a normal court. Like, this is nonsense, right? Legal nonsense, what she's doing. Okay. And I think they all know that the Supreme Court is not going to uphold this, but we will see, right? We'll see what the Supreme Court does. All I know is that if the Supreme Court does not, basically strike this stuff down that these Democrat states are doing, then basically this country is done, right? There is nothing stopping Democrats from actually really maintaining their dictatorship, right? Because that's what they're trying to do, okay? The Supreme Court, this is the time where Trump's picks really do come in handy and come into play in regards to actually saving our republic. I'm so serious, okay? This is the last institution in this country that actually has some integrity. And yeah, all eyes on the Supreme Court. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.